Welcome back to the podcast. I am here with Jess Carey and Elise Daly Parker, and we are talking about creating a culture of growth in our home. That's a growth mindset where we are always looking to grow, to learn, and to personally develop. But before we get started, I would love to ask you guys, what is something that you are raving about these days? We briefly touched base before the podcast started, and I think we're going in the food vein today. Guys, what do you got?
Well, yes, because I love this chocolate. I think it's pronounced Hu or Hue, like human. It's just HU Kitchen.
Oh.
And they have so many like organic, like high dark chocolate content in it. My favorite is the almond butter with puffed quinoa. It is so good. I mean,
Butter,
even
quinoa.
people,
Okay.
yeah.
I have to think about
People
that
are like,
for a second.
that sounds like health food, Jess. Sounds
Yeah,
like
it does
food.
a little. It does. I'm concerned.
It does not taste like health food. I love it.
Okay.
It's delicious.
Don't give me chocolate that tastes like health food.
I mean, it doesn't taste like Hershey's. No,
that's
we are
okay.
way above the Hershey's land.
That's okay.
But
Okay.
it's delicious. They have a bunch of kinds: cashew butter, almond butter. It's my fave.
I love cashews. I probably like that.
Mm-hmm.
What about you, Elise?
Well, now that you talked about chocolate, do you guys know Lily's chocolate?
I don't think I do.
It is sugar-free. I think it's got erythritol or whatever that word is. And she makes, whoever she is, dark chocolate peanut butter patties, and they're really actually delicious. But I was going to say cheese, like a light cheese popcorn. I think it's Chick-a-Boom is one of them. And Smart Food's okay. There's another one that I love. Can't think of what it is.
Is that like your go-to snack, popcorn?
That is my go-to because it's crunchy and it has some salt. I also do love microwavable popcorn as well, like a low-fat version.
Can I tell you? So I got sworn off of microwave popcorn. My mother was like, "Don't do the microwave popcorn." You know, like she's like, it's full of all kinds of chemicals.
Because the inside of the bag and all that.
All that, yes, exactly. So I got, okay, this is going to revolutionize your life. Okay.
Oh, good.
It is. See, this like went on I'm going to go on a tear and have so many suggestions. But the Amish have this popcorn popper for the microwave, but it's like a certain type of plastic that you pour dry popcorn, like regular bag dry popcorn in it, pop it in the microwave, add whatever seasonings you want. Delicious.
Ooh.
Without any of the chemicals. You can do it with no oil. So it's good for people. Yeah.
You'll have to send that link.
I will totally send it. You can put it in the show notes.
Chocolate and popcorn, salty and sweet. I love that.
Have you had some of that popcorn that has like the chocolate?
Like drizzled on it?
Yeah.
Well, not quite drizzled. Like I want a little more than drizzle. Some of it is like dark chocolate, kind of clumpy, and it's, oh my gosh. In fact, I've had it with some caramel popcorn too. Oh gosh.
Oh my gosh, Elise.
This is
so
not
funny.
going to fit into my Weight Watchers program that I started today.
Oh,
it's okay.
no.
The way I have to keep saying things when I literally just started, but I have to keep saying it's just for today.
Yes.
None of that stuff's going away.
That's it.
They're forever. Just
5 more minutes.
Get a little
on
healthier.
my Weight Watchers, just 5-minute increments.
Yeah.
Going.
You can do it. You can do it. The next meal.
That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Good job, Elise.
Well, mine
Kim?
isn't chocolate. Although I do love chocolate. I love the Lindt chocolate, the balls.
Mm-hmm.
Those
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Do you like dark or milk or what's
I like milk chocolate. Yeah. So, I mean, like I've gotten to the point where like, I won't do a Hershey Kiss. I won't waste the calories. Like if it's not going to be like decadent, I don't want
it. Good. Yeah. I will say Hershey is one of my favorite places. So I want to be careful.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's great. But I mean, at this point in my life, at my age,
you want the good stuff.
And so my foodie type recommendation today is, I just got this thing called Everything Aioli, and I got it on Amazon.
Ooh.
And
like the bagel.
Yeah, but not like the bagel. So it's Turpin Ridge Farms Everything Aioli garnishing sauce.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I went over a friend's house to watch March Madness, and she put it out because someone gave it to her as a gift, and I think she just didn't know what to do with it.
Yeah.
And I put it on like a burger. I didn't do a bun. I did a burger with coleslaw, and then I just ran this stuff over it, and it was really good. It's like you could
Wow.
dip fries in it. It might be called everything because you could probably use it on everything.
Okay.
And I'm
Wow.
learning
Not like
how,
the, yeah.
yeah. And I'm learning how, like, I don't love mayonnaise, never have.
Mm.
I like ketchup, but I've fallen out of love with ketchup. So like the idea of an aioli to dip my French fries or to put on a sandwich, I really like that. So I just bought it. I just got it today. So
Amazing.
I'm super excited.
Okay, question, Kimberly, have you had
Mhm.
Chick-fil-A sauce?
Oh, I have some in my fridge.
I have, and we bought some, but I don't really
No, but
like it
what
doesn't stand
what I
out
want
to
to know
me.
is it similar or is it not similar at all?
I'm gonna have to go let you know. I'll have to go taste it because
All
I
right.
think I have some.
Okay.
I'll let you know.
A little taste test. I
Little
will say
verdict
the what
later.
is it? Everything bagel
Uh,
seasoning. Speaking of that,
yes,
do love
yes.
that. Love that stuff.
That's good for like a poached egg on avocado toast.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah, we
growth
could.
mindset. All right.
Yeah.
One of my favorite, hands down, resources for growth mindset is the Big Life Journal. So it's an Instagram feed that I started following a while back, and I love the content that they create. And so a lot of what we're going to talk about tonight, when I put together my list of things that I wanted to bring to the table, came from their website, some of the free resources that they have. And so I just want
That's
to
good.
set the stage by sharing what a growth mindset is versus a fixed mindset. And so a child with a growth mindset, because we're talking about our children, although definitely all the things we're talking about can be applied to our life, but I really wanted to talk about like, how do we teach our kids to do it? Because, sometimes we forget to actually teach certain things to our kids. We just think that they know how to do it or they're going to pick up on the way we do it. And that's not always true. So a child with a growth mindset thinks that they are capable of changing. They embrace lifelong learning, which helps them become more successful and happy in life. They can easily bounce back from failures and setbacks. And a child with a fixed mindset thinks their intelligent creativity, physical ability are fixed and can't be changed. They typically avoid challenges, give up easily, and are terrified of failures. Thoughts, ladies?
My first thought is I really believe it's very hard to have that or that. I think so much is that. Because I was thinking as you were saying, growth, just I have adult children, so I know more now, like of how they've received things, what has not been helpful, stuff like that. And I just think about growth mindset, yes, but also there was some perfectionism mixed in and some unwitting shaming that went on. I've heard this stuff from my kids. I don't like to admit it, but so I think that mixes things a little bit. As usual, true confessions from an older mom with hindsight. So yeah, I think it's brilliant, but I think it's very hard to have one or the other. I think we tend to be geared towards one, but there's also other things that might inhibit.
Right. So do you think that do you find that some children it comes more naturally than others? Or do you think it really has to do with the overall culture of the home?
Good question. I mean, I would say,
And in your experience.
I would say personally, both my husband and I are very growth mindset oriented in terms of thinking, like how you can change your thoughts. Definitely believe in yourself. I think we definitely instilled that in them. I certainly think, we also instilled you were created in a certain way. You've got purpose that the Lord has given you, So, but generally speaking, it would be hard for me to tell because I think we really were not achievement oriented, but growth oriented. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I'm in a transition phase where I'm doing a lot of reflecting on the handful of years I have left with my kids under my roof. And I'm sort of wondering, like, where did I get it right and where did I miss it? Not because I want to, like, gosh, I definitely I don't want to carry any guilt or shame for sure. But there are things that I have found myself frustrated with that I can look back and go, well, I didn't really walk them through that, or I didn't really teach them that, or I didn't really like, oh, yeah, I understand why they're approaching it this way. And so I really, I've become really passionate about circling back and filling in those holes where I see, okay, this is what's missing. This is where we stumble. This is what's holding them back. This is where they're stuck. Because I don't want them to be stuck, in the future.
I think that's amazing that you're doing that at this point, Kimberly. And I admire how intentional you are. And I think it's another example of that. And I think it's so important. I've been thinking for some reason, we basically have 18 years with our kids. It feels like forever so often. And if you have a bunch of them, it spreads out, of course, a few more years. But at the end of the day, we have 18 years basically under our roof. Most of our kids, not most, but many of our kids leave, go somewhere at that point. So even though your kids are coming back in, their influences are very much outside of your home now. And and when they do come home, I guess I think it's okay to have full disclosure and kind of say to your kids, I'm seeing something. If you think that would be helpful, to actually say to them, I'm seeing some place where I don't think I trained you in this area, or I helped you in this area, or I didn't understand this. And now I see it, and I want to talk to you about it. And I can say for me, I remember when I had to talk to my kids about my reactivity in my home.
Yeah, I love that.
That's good.
I think, a little bit like you said, Elise, we can strike this balance between a fixed mindset. Like, I don't want to be the mother that tells my child, you have the most beautiful singing voice I've ever heard. And then they believe they should go on, America's Got Talent, and Simon Cowell smashes them to the absolute ground. That's just being dishonest, in my opinion. Right. So, it's sort of lead your child in the way that they should go. It's look at their unique skills and talents and then develop those and have them. The part about developing a growth mindset that I really love is help them develop risk taking in the areas where they will have the most potential for success based on who they are, based on their unique personality, and then teach them to overcome the rejection that they may face, or the things that will come against you just in life in general. It's like, no, you know what? You failed that time, but that's just feedback. What can you change next time? Keep going.
That's good, Jess.
The
failure is just feedback. I love it.
I can't claim that. That's not my own. That's Lee Burns. He was from Hillsong Bible College, and he's the one that I don't know if he coined that phrase. But that's who I heard it from.
I have heard it, but it's awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Failure is just feedback.
Yeah. Amen.
So
it's
that's
funny because my daughter is super risky. Like, she'll do anything. She's like, I'm game. I'm going to start a business. I'm going to make a new friend. I'm going to do this. She just naturally is like that. And my son is just a bit more reserved, that he's naturally that way. So the way that I encourage my daughter to take risks is totally different than how I encourage my son to. My son, it's like, hey, go talk to that kid. He looks like he's your age. Maybe you should make a friend.
A little more encouragement.
Yeah. Meanwhile, with Kennedy, sometimes with her, I'm like, all right, what have you got to lose? Like, shoot the moon, girl. Like, go for it. It doesn't take much encouragement for her. She's signing the papers and like asking for the contract before we're figuring out, oh, wait a minute, this is in another state. You can't do that.
Well, just like we've changed what failure means, I think we can change what rejection means. And
Totally.
there was a book that my husband read and that he made us all read. It was required reading for all of my kids, was Rejection Proof. And it was this idea, this guy, he like, I forget the story. He
No,
basically
is that the
wanted
guy
to,
that did the TED Talk, the 100 Days of Rejection?
yes, he basically wanted to like
Oh,
level
that
up.
sounds like fun.
Yes.
No, it's amazing.
Yes.
It is, Elise, it's amazing. You got to go watch
It would be
TED
good for
Talk.
me. I'm very
Yeah.
rejection sensitive, so it would be really
Yes.
good for me.
Right. So you need to like, so he set out to be rejected, what, 100 times?
100 days, 100 days in a row. Yeah.
Of rejection. I mean, he
Yeah.
got to the point where he like couldn't even get rejected because people were just happy to help him. They were doing the craziest things for him. And of course he was documenting it. And so like his one video went viral and
Yeah.
like he flips like
Love
this
that.
idea of rejection and like we're doing with failure, like be okay with rejection and move on. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, what's the worst that can happen? Somebody says no. What's the worst going to happen? It didn't work out. Like we have to, I think it's good to teach our kids not to be scared of rejection and help them to understand, not to read into it,
I do have something. This is going to be a difficult question, I think, with regards to rejection.
Okay.
What do we do when someone who is meant to essentially not reject your
Mhm.
children, right? Whether it's a parent or a grandparent or someone close to them
Mhm.
that deeply wounds your child with something that very specifically rejects something about them. It's like in those situations, how do you help your child have a growth mindset with regards to rejection?
Okay, so I will just say my mother was rejecting.
Mm-hmm.
She just did not know how to love. She had mental illness that prevented that. So I grew up that way. And so did my 4 brothers and sisters. And I would say, honestly, we do have a growth mindset as a group. But you really
How do you
have
think that happened, Elise? How do you think that happened?
we had each other. We
Mhm.
were very, 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 my sisters and I are best friends.
Yeah.
We had my father, who was a counterpoint. He was positive and encouraging, and he built us up. He, was always in touch with us, that kind of stuff. Very different, very different. He couldn't make up for my mother, but it covered his love covered a multitude of sins. But I just feel like what I guess I'm thinking about, Jess, is so I still have that wound of rejection. I do.
Sure.
I'm very, very sensitive in that area, much less than I used to be. But and that leads to a spirit of offense.
Oh, sure.
FOMO.
Yeah.
I feel like going like this to Kimberly because she knows all my stuff. We've just known each other long enough and worked close enough that she really does know my stuff.
She knows all of it.
And again, I do think that I've grown and changed just by living. That is what changes us. That is, going through experiences and, as you say about your kids, allowing them to have rejection.
Sure.
Not throwing them to the wolves, but maybe if they're going to try something that is almost a guaranteed rejection, saying something about that before they jump in. I mean, I definitely, I do have risk takers. So somehow I guess I reparented in a way that didn't make them afraid. And also, quite honestly, my husband could not care less about what anybody thinks of him. It is miraculous.
So he was an example. He was an example. Like he was rejection proof.
And he also was, I'm trying to think of the phrase that he continues to say to them. It's kind of like it's never over. Don't ever give up. Like if, if somebody was applying to a doctoral program and at the top 3 schools in the United States of America and didn't get in, it's not over. Write a letter, do this, if it's what you really want, it's not over. And by the way, that is the principle that got him to go to Columbia University and master's in poetry when he was like 21 and had no business, but he just, he haunted people. So
He he haunted
he
people.
did. I
The
mean, he would
new
tell you
word
that.
for being resilient is I'm gonna just haunt you.
I'm not gonna give up until
That's it.
you open your door to me. And
Yeah.
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 I do think he taught my children that. And I do think that, yeah, I would say I did it more like I did it afraid.
Yeah.
He did it more like, I'm not gonna let that stop me.
Yeah.
And I really don't care what you say to me.
Yeah. You know,
I
one of
think
the
your
things,
husband might be related to my daughter.
Maybe.
She haunts me with her questions. She's like, Mom, can I go here? Can I do this? Can I do that? Can I do this? What about this? Can I switch this and do that instead? And then I'm like, I did say no like 10 different ways very
Yes,
nicely. And
right.
I'm
So here we
about
teach
to
them how to take risks and say yes to
Yeah.
rejection. And then look what we have to deal with.
Right.
That's it. That's it. Be careful.
Yes.
Be careful.
It's true.
You were going to say something, Kimberly.
I was going to say, when it comes to people rejecting our children or even us, what I've
Mhm.
taught my children is typically when you're in that situation, it has more to do with them and less about you. You know, I think especially in terms of friendship and even grownups, like grownups
Yeah.
are still carrying their own junk. And what they're dealing with things probably on the inside of them that we have no idea about. And it's
Yeah.
not that, you know, I know for a fact a lot of the drama with the middle schoolers and the high school
Mm.
girls, it has nothing to do with my daughter. It's typically like her friend's issue with her mom at home and she's not getting along with her parents right now, or her boyfriend just broke up with her. That's why she's lousy right now to you. And that's why she's, you know, and look,
Or
it's not
hormones or
justifying. Yeah,
so
it's
many
not
things.
justifying it. It's obviously not okay. And I make sure to tell her, I don't say it's okay, it's okay. Well, it's not okay.
Mhm.
But here's what you need to know about you versus them, and your worth and your value, you know, does not depend on that. Yes, it hurts, but this isn't about you, you know.
Mhm.
I love the line. I think this line is so gold. People are not telling you about you, they're telling you about them. And that's what you're talking about,
Yeah.
Kimberly. It's like that is what's happening most of the time,
Mhm.
you know?
Yeah.
Especially in sticky situations. Everybody has issues. Everybody has stuff going on that has nothing to do with us.
Mhm.
And yeah, I think it's really important to remember. I said that to my daughter just the other day. Just,
Mhm.
you know,
I
that
love what
person.
Brene Brown says about that along that line, you know, her famous quote. And she's like, my life is a lot better whenever I assume that everybody's doing the best they can,
Yes.
you
Mhm.
know? And
Yep.
it's like, that's a growth mindset for our
It's
kids. It's
related.
like,
Yep.
you know, just assume that everybody's doing the very best they can.
Mhm.
And because when you set out to school or you're doing your own life, you're not, you know, you're trying to do your best as well, right? And you don't get it
Mhm.
right all the time. Mom doesn't get it right
Mhm.
all the time. So
Right.
Yeah.
if you make that assumption, then it's easier for you to sort of shift your perspective behind, you know, them
Yep.
and say, okay, what could possibly have been going on that made this situation a little bit more difficult than maybe it normally would be.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I just love
Yeah.
that quote from Brene. I
I
keep
think
it in the
that's
back of my
great.
head.
I think
Yeah.
that's great. And I think,
Mhm.
Kimberly, that applies to what you were talking about with momming as well.
Yeah.
At the time, there's no playbook for raising children, and there are no two children who are alike. So it's a pretty wild situation when you
Mhm.
think about it.
Mhm.
Amazing anybody gets out alive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, in terms of what you're talking about, Kimberly, again, it's like you did do the best you could with what you had and what you saw at the time. And
Mhm.
so that's important too for our kids to understand. We're human.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
didn't always
Humility.
I didn't make the best decisions, but it was what I knew at the time.
Yeah. I think another thing about growth mindset is being process focused rather than outcome focused. You
Mhm.
know,
Yes.
it's an expression we hear, and I've heard in Christian, especially in Christian circles, about like, what is God trying to do in your heart in the midst of this? Because we can often get focused on that outcome and whether or not, let's say, our
Yes.
prayer got answered, or whether we achieved what we wanted to achieve. Well, what are we learning in the process? And I remind myself of that all the time when I am not getting where I wanted to go fast enough. You know,
Amen.
I can appreciate and enjoy the process, and I can learn through this process. And it's not just about arriving. Yes, I want my kids to set goals for themselves, and I want them to work towards those goals. But I don't just praise them when they reach that goal. I praise them for the process and the habits they created in the process of getting to that goal. My daughter doubled up, or not doubled up. She took a math class over the summer so she wouldn't have to double up on it her sophomore year of high school. And she spent like, I don't know, six weeks doing a whole semester's worth of work by just getting up and first thing in the morning, working for 2 hours. I mean, that process and what she learned alone was just, I mean, thankfully she passed the test and she was able to go into the next math class, but like that process alone developed something in her that she now knows she can do. She can set a goal and she can achieve it. And oh my gosh, small steps over time, I accomplished what I wanted.
Yeah. That's
and
brilliant.
she did something, unpopular, counterculture,
Hard.
she did something hard. Exactly. So I think that, that's another part of this idea of growth mindset is actually trying new things, doing new things,
Yes.
Shameless plug, sorry, but as you were talking about that, the first book that I wrote, Chart a Course, it's like the destination as a Christian is actually heaven. That's your destination. But guess what? We don't get there until we're no longer here. So it's kind of like you've got to think that along the way, it's like this whole time that we are on earth is a journey, is a process, is one more part of the trip to get to the final destination. And so if you look at it like that, I don't know, for me, it's like you can enjoy more of the seasons.
Absolutely. I'm thinking
because you know where you're going. You're like, yeah, that's down the road.
And even just reminding ourselves that it is all a journey makes it so much more interesting because there's always something new then, right?
Yep.
The journey's never done. There's always, no matter where we are, no matter what we're doing, there's a next.
Well,
until the very end, as you say.
And Elise, I love that because it's like you also, okay, if you're in a terrible season, right? All of us have gone through seasons where it's like, oh gosh, but you can recognize that it is a season. There is another season coming. It may not be as soon as we want. It may not be as warm as we might want it to be, but it is coming. And I think that also helps you endure through some of the more trying parts of life as well. That builds resilience, which is also part of a growth mindset. You're resilient. So I love that. It's awesome.
Yeah. This isn't on our list, but like the ability to embrace even mistakes, like in the process. I'm thinking, like just the other night, I overcooked something and I was like, oh, this is really good. Like it going back to the food analogy, like how many times have like things been discovered? I know. Have things been discovered? It's these almond tortillas that I'm.
Oh, yes.
When you put them on the griddle, I like left them too long on the griddle, and I really like the texture that they had. And I was like, oh, okay. Like the recipe didn't tell me to do that, but they were so good. And so this idea that we can learn things and discover things. I mean, I don't know how many, but how many discoveries were made because of accidents, happy accidents, where we're like, oh, wow, I didn't know that would be possible or that this would happen. And it did. And now you've got a better way to do things.
There is another food analogy like cotton candy or something. There's some confection. I wish I could recall it now, but it was an accident just like that. Like someone was like, whatever. And then you're like, oh,
I burned the sugar.
Candy.
Oh,
yeah. I burned the sugar. That might be what it is.
Probably.
It might have been caramel.
That
might be it. I knew it was something. Like
makes a lot of sense.
When I went to the Corning Museum in New York, which is one of my favorite museums, like another unplanned stop we made on a trip. That's how they made Corningware, was they overcooked the glass. And what happened was they were just making glass bowls and it had that opacity to it.
Yeah.
Because it was left in the cooker, whatever they call it. Kiln. Too long. It became opaque and it was much more sturdy and durable than the glass that they had been making.
Wow.
Yep.
Look at that.
Very interesting.
Can't wait to go to that museum, Corning, New York.
It was awesome.
Yeah. Go get myself some Corningware.
Yes.
Why not?
I love that museum. It's great.
Yeah.
Awesome.
What a great little, this is the thing. Yes. These are the things that when our kids make mistakes, that we should remind them of these stories, right?
Yes.
Because I think the stories of how mistakes became something wonderful
Mhm.
alleviates a little bit of that pressure.
Yeah.
At least it does for me. It's kind of like, oh
Mhm.
yeah, I messed up. That's okay.
Yeah.
1,000 times, whatever. Alexander, no, who invented the light bulb? Thomas
Thomas Edison, along
Thomas
with a few
Edison.
others.
Yeah.
And
Definitely.
yeah. Thank you for clarifying, Elise. There's like 3 people.
Yeah,
10,
there are.
something
And
like that.
yeah, 3, 10, something like that.
Yeah.
His
But yeah,
factory is right
that's
around the
so
corner
good.
from our house.
It is.
Yeah.
Sheesh, really?
Yes. So if you come see
Hmm.
us, we can take you over to Thomas
I
Edison's
should say
place.
when I come see you.
Yes, when. And not only his factory, his mansion.
Yeah.
Oh.
Right across the street.
Mm-hmm.
So we took a family road trip last year. Some of you guys know about that.
Yeah.
And we listened to the entire autobiography of Milton Hershey. Speaking of Hershey,
I do love him.
The guy was like really
good guy.
really interesting man. Yeah. And a great story.
Mm-hmm.
But again, like, he was a risk taker. This guy bought an entire factory, built an entire town around this idea of affordable chocolate for the masses before he ever had a recipe to make chocolate.
Didn't he? Speaking of caramels, he started with caramels.
He sure
we
did.
go back
Look
to that
that.
again.
Back to food and chocolate.
It's almost like we scripted this, even though we didn't. It's amazing.
We did not.
Yeah.
But yeah, so those are the things, like,
I love that.
Circling back to that gives all of us permission, right? To keep going, to keep trying, to keep making mistakes, to tell the naysayers, the people that are like, oh, are you still at that? Are you still doing that? La, 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 whatever. You're like, yeah, I am. I am. I'm still pursuing that dream. I'm still taking steps toward it. And, I think it's exciting. Have you guys know Imagine Dragons, the group? And like one of the lines in one of their songs is, you were laughing in the nosebleeds. Like he was a kid that was bullied. And essentially he was doing his thing, and he knew one day he was destined for a stage and all this. And then he goes, and now you're clapping from the nosebleeds. You were laughing at me, but now you're clapping from the nosebleeds.
Oh,
which is
wow.
like, what a great line. Hey, that he got to work into that. So these are our good examples we can give our kids that I think help them.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, they're never going to get anywhere without taking risks.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line.
What's the biggest risk you've taken? That's what I want to know. That's a good question.
Oh. Got
and
anything?
The wind went out of the room.
Maybe that's the homework.
Well, yeah, I think that's a big question, but
I can say mine.
Yeah.
I think my biggest risk personally was moving to London with knowing no one, with a 2 and 3 year old, and having only been married like, a hot minute. That was a big risk.
Wow.
I totally into the unknown.
I'm going to piggyback on that moving risk. After I graduated college, I literally moved to Atlanta with everything that could fit into my car and $60.
Wow.
And a pack of hot dogs, right?
Yeah, essentially.
Or you bought those on the way.
I bought them. I slept on a friend's couch from my high school, who was basically like, and I hadn't seen him in 4 years. He's like, oh, I'm living in Atlanta. I literally was out at a bar with him, and he goes, oh, I'm living in Atlanta. You should totally come down and move down there. Stay. I think he might have said stay with me at first. And I was like, okay. And so I knew I was going to work. I know, right?
Okay.
I knew I was going to work at the 96 Olympics, and I needed a place to stay. So I called him up and I said, I'm coming down. I need some place to stay for 2 weeks. And I was like, oh, maybe I should move to Atlanta. And he goes, well, I think I'm moving home. So I paid up my lease. Why don't you just take my room? Literally I had nothing. I just was like, okay, let's go.
That's
pretty
risky. That's
risky. That's risky. That's definitely risky.
Yeah.
A whole
I
other
also
city.
carpooled with my husband, having known him for 2 hours. for an hour and a half. The first 3 days that we were together, I literally got in his car the next day, not knowing. I was like, that was probably not a very good choice, but it was a very good
worked
choice.
out okay.
It did work out okay. At
I was
first, it was risky though.
As soon as you asked the question, my answer, absolutely, it was like word association, marriage. Now, I did not know that going in. It didn't feel like a risk, but I think it's definitely one of the hardest, riskiest things you can do. However, I want to add to that a few things on my list. One was moving into New York City because even though I lived, 12 miles west most of my life, I was terrified of it. So I decided to move in to get over it. But before I did that, I did 3 months of backpacking through Europe with my girlfriend on $15 a day. And I think that was pretty risky too, especially at the time. This was not when everybody was doing junior year abroad or half semester, whatever. It just wasn't. And I think things like that. Oh, having my own business, starting a gourmet cheese and coffee shop. Again, before people had cheese on the shelves and coffee on the shelves, like beans everywhere. Nobody had them. And doing that when I was working at HBO as a copywriter and had just gotten married. It was so insane. It was so insane. But it was fun and it taught me a lot. One of the things it taught me was I don't want to have a gourmet coffee shop.
Amazing.
We do learn what we do and do not want to do. This is absolutely true.
Which fits perfectly with create a habit of learning new things.
Oh,
That's
yes.
one of those growth mindset indicators, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah,
when's the last time you learned to do something new?
Well, I not really new, but I joined a volleyball team.
Oh,
I haven't played since high school.
I learned how to play pickleball. I freaking love it. It is amazing.
I love pickleball.
Everybody around me was like, do you play pickleball? I'm like, what is this thing that everyone is talking about?
It's so big. So
big.
Well, I actually played even though I'm practically bedridden.
Elise is on the verge. She's okay.
I did play pickleball. I did learn pickleball recently. I love it too. Absolutely love it. But also starting a podcast without doing it with Kimberly and Noelle. That's been a definite learning curve. Not the technical part, because I'm not doing that part, but all the other parts. It's been quite a lot to learn and understand. And
I've always been a tinkerer. Like I love to tinker and I love to learn something new, especially if I don't want to pay for it.
So
that's a big motivator.
That's good.
I learned how to sew curtains because I was like, I am not paying for somebody else. No.
Good for you.
Well, and plus you're a designer, Kim. Like you have the eye, you know what you want. You know when you've hit the mark, when you haven't. I would destroy a sewing machine. I feel
I have.
This is like failure is just feedback.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's like, don't be sewing, girl.
Don't be sewing. That is one thing I wish, like you talk about like a microchip, if you could just drop a skill in your body. Two things. I wish that, well, actually, if my top 3 microchips, if I could choose them, fluently speaking Spanish, playing
I'm doing Duolingo now.
Are you?
Yes, because we're going to Costa Rica in the summer.
¿Qué pasa, Kimberly? She's like, huh?
I did take it in high school. I just don't remember. Go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No.
Piano.
But the last thing is to be a seamstress, like be able to like, even just modify my clothes a little bit. Like, cause sometimes it's like, oh, the hem is just that much too long to look how I want it to.
Yeah.
But if I tried to hem it, disaster.
Yeah,
Again,
it's almost like tailoring, or as you said, seamstress. But that would be a handy skill. I have taken sewing classes and really dabbled, and nothing's ever really worked out. So it's just not my skill.
Kimberly, do you have, or at least you might know this too. I heard something along the lines. Again, this needs to be fact checked. So, but that learning new things actually helps to ward off or delay things like dementia
Oh yeah,
and
absolutely.
Alzheimer's. Yeah.
Yep.
Mhm, mhm,
So I think it's great. We
Brain,
should
brain
keep,
exercise.
yeah, keep learning new
mhm.
games, all kinds of things.
I mean, especially if you think about like pickleball, for example,
Hmm.
and volleyball too, though you already know, Kimberly, the rules and stuff.
Mhm.
Like with pickleball, you have to learn the
It's a
weird
little complex.
scoring. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know, but of course we had my sister Sheila with us, and she's like a bronze medal winner already. So she's knocking pickleball dead out there in
Ah,
Florida. But
yeah.
yeah, so you have to, it's physical, it's
Yeah.
mental, it's lots of, I think that stuff,
Hand-eye coordination,
yeah,
all
so
of
good
that.
for your brain,
Yeah.
especially
Mhm.
as we age. Yep.
Yeah.
I want
All
to learn
right.
how to do Sudoku, but I gave up. I tried
I,
it a couple
Oh, I
times
like
and then I was like,
Sudoku.
that, yeah.
I don't know it.
Yeah.
I mean, I know of it, but I don't know how to do it. What
Well, we
about
do
Wordle?
Wordle. We do it as a family now. We
Yeah.
text each
Do
other our
you?
results.
I did
Yeah.
not get my word yet today.
I didn't either.
I'm
Don't tell me if you
stumped.
did.
No, I'm
Okay.
stumped. I
All
only
right.
got to 3 and I was like, I'm not giving up.
I got 2. I got to remember to go back to it.
Wow.
Okay, so another attribute that we can teach our kids for growth mindset is learning the art of receiving feedback. Now, this is something that I love. I know I've talked to you guys about this before, the 360 peer review family retreat that we do, where everybody gets a chance to like express and give feedback. And for me, I know that was a hard one when I first started getting work reviews, at work, and people were critiquing like legit, not just like,
Mm.
the stuff we deal with friends or siblings or parents, but like legit sit you down and they're like, here's what's up.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Like you're awesome, except these 3 things.
Mm-hmm,
And you're like,
mm-hmm.
oh, that really hurts. I don't know what to do with that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so that's why it was important for me to start the 360 peer review. I mean, most things great that I've done have started selfishly, meaning that like I wanted to know what I was doing wrong. But I think the byproduct is that I've taught my kids and they are now used to giving and
I
receiving
think that's
feedback.
great. I think
Yeah.
that's great. Really good. Yeah.
Kids and adults, actually, at least like adults that can receive feedback that are coachable
Mm-hmm,
will ultimately surpass their peers
mm-hmm.
Absolutely true.
because
I
they're
mean,
able to grow past whatever hurdles that they may encounter, whatever deficits they may have in the
Mhm.
workplace and their marriages and their relationships. If they're able to, I'm very lucky. I have a loving husband that he does give me feedback in
yeah.
a way that I can receive it. He's not
Mhm.
condemning or critical, but
Mhm.
but I'm open to that. I'm open to him saying, hey, Jess, you've been a little on edge lately. Is everything okay? And that's critical feedback. And I have to be able to
Yeah.
take that and ask myself the same questions, like, why am I on edge? Like, what does he mean by that? And then am I brave enough to ask that question? What do you mean me being on
Mhm.
edge? Can you elaborate? Do I want you to? Probably not, but
Yeah,
I
I
think
think
that's
that's good.
awesome.
Yeah.
So Kimberly, can you tell us about the 360 review? I mean, I know it in a professional context,
Mhm,
but how
mhm.
do you do it in your family?
We do once a year, we do a little retreat where we leave the house. We tried to do it at home. That didn't work. Even if we were like trying to set boundaries, it did not work. We
Mhm.
usually get a hotel, typically something really close by, usually with a Groupon, someplace near, mini golf, someplace with a indoor pool. And we alternate these discussion activities with fun activities that we can enjoy each other's company with. And it's just a series of exercises where they get to, tell us what they like most about the family, what they like least about the family. They get to rate their siblings. I have a sheet where they get to rate each of their siblings, and it's on a scale of 1 to 5, and it's on different attributes. There's even a sheet where they get to talk about mom and dad. What are 3 words to describe mom? What are 3 words to describe dad? What do you need more from your mom? What do you need more from dad? And yeah, so they get to give us feedback and then they get to receive feedback. And I think that, we started it at a pretty, a young age. My kids were 6, 8, and 10. And, the one sort of thing that people say to me is this going to cause like my kids to fight?
Yeah.
Sure.
You're like,
Are we
maybe.
opening a can of worms? Yeah.
But you know what? I haven't talked to anybody that's actually done it, because if you start, especially when they're somewhat young, and I saw my kids own up to it pretty easily, because they kind of were like, yeah, I do that. Yeah, I know. And they were open to it. I think part of what made it so amazing was that they were able to give feedback to their siblings too. So it wasn't like they were being singled out. It wasn't like, oh, you're doing this. It was that they all had an opportunity to speak into a particular like topic or prompt. And I think they felt like, oh, we can all just talk about this and be honest, and it's a safe place to do it. And so, yeah, I think it's been good, because then one of the other amazing byproducts of it is that throughout the year, we can go back and be like, hey, remember when we discussed this? I'm not seeing any progress on that. Or, hey, that used to be something that you struggled with, and I see that you're growing, and I see that you're improving, and acknowledging where there's growth just makes them excited for the following year and for future conversations about how they're doing.
Yeah, I think if it's done well, you're creating a safe environment where it really is not a threatening, angry situation. Obviously, it's a place that's safe, and we can all build each other up, and also provide some input. And I think that's really important.
So I do have the family retreat packet available on my website, and there's also a digital component if your kids like to do it on their iPads or anything. It's like I've created a Google form. So then this way, what I love about that is it saves all the answers, so that from year to year, you can kind of track, like, are we seeing
I
growth?
love that.
So it's got a sample itineraries, activities to do, a packing list, all the discussion worksheets, and so it's available on my website. It's not a free download. It's a paid download, but it's on my website in the store.
That would be insane.
That's all.
Yeah, that sounds amazing.
My family could use that for sure. I think, even though they're older, even my kid, they're middle school, but I think they're still of that age, like you said, where they're pliable enough and they're young enough to own up to stuff, and then to see the improvement. One of the things that, as you were talking, I was thinking, having a pattern of celebrating when someone overcomes a fear or an uncertainty or takes a risk, and maybe it doesn't turn out the way that they wanted it to. It's like, still celebrate the willingness to take the risk, to try the new thing, I don't know. I think sometimes if we champion even just the attempt, then they're more likely to attempt new things again. My son will literally eat anything. We started having him try stuff. I'm not joking. When he was really young, we were living abroad. We went to France. We tried everything. Like, it was like, we tried escargot. We tried all the things. And we wanted our kids to try them as well. Just try it. Just try it. You may not like it. It's okay. My son loved all the strange things, all of them. We had roasted, like traditional escargot, in the little like round thing, and all the snails and everything. And we didn't tell him that they were snails. We didn't tell him that. We were just like, it's a fancy French word. Just try it. and he tried it and he loved it. And he was like, these are good. Can we get another one? And I'm like, not at 68 pounds a pop. I'm like, that's it, brother.
Yeah, right.
You had your escargot. That's the end of that.
That's it. Yeah. But he's still, to this day, he's adventurous in that way, because we were so impressed that he was willing to try something so, outside of the ordinary.
You like positively reinforced it, and then you get more of it. Yeah, I think that's great. I do think it's too late for us. Although we are all going to celebrate Lauren's birthday in the fall. I'm like, gosh, we won't do that. But it would be
the 360 review.
Yeah, I would love to do it even now. I mean,
Well, you could find ways to do it where, I mean, because if as close as you guys are, and if you're spending time with people, like I would love to get feedback from, extended family that we see pretty often. Like, because
Yeah.
I wouldn't want something to drive a wedge between us that I was completely unaware of. And that's something that happens
Totally.
all the time.
True.
There are certain things that I may not be paying attention to, or I'm sensitive about, some things that I take for granted for me that I don't realize are a big deal to them, and so it probably isn't a bad idea. I mean, I haven't thought about it, but maybe we should, it would have to
Well,
be,
I think that
fun.
doing that with your family is brilliant, and I truly think everybody should do it, because it just creates a culture that is for one another. And again, it's not like you're airing out your dirty laundry, or this is your opportunity to be mean to one another.
Mhm.
Obviously, you're doing it within a context. And I love the way you also mix, some of the feedback with playing mini golf.
Mhm.
Great.
Mhm.
It's great.
Yeah, and
Team building.
frappuccinos and board games and swimming in the pool. Yeah,
Really fun.
yeah. And this sort of segues nicely into this whole idea of comparing yourself to yourself only and not to other people. So like the data that we get from these family retreats allows us to then circle back with our kids and talk about how they've grown over the year, like I just mentioned. But also it gives us an opportunity to remind them, like, you're not your sibling, and I'm not going to compare your growth to them. I'm not going to compare your grades to them. I'm not going to compare, because you have different interests and talents, and there's so many things. And so, comparing ourselves to others is just never a good idea. And if we can sort of shift and pivot and say, oh, I want to be growing. I want to be, more kind and more caring and more like Jesus, better version of myself. I mean,
Right.
that's not the goal to be the best version of ourselves. It gets a little sticky when that's all we're living for. But like comparing ourselves to ourselves and not to others, I think is a really good trait to have.
Absolutely. And I know what you're kind of pushing back against, the culture of the best you, but I do think we all need to be showing up as the best us each day. And so again, if you do that in the proper context, that just means there's always room for growth. And so, when you see that happening for one of your children and you're able to say, hey, I'm noticing this, it's really awesome. And having that underlying sort of, we do show up as our best selves as much as possible. And it doesn't mean we don't also show up, especially in the context of family, as our worst selves. Have to be able to do that somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's great, because then you get the breadth of your entire expression as a human being in family, right? I was just having this conversation with my son. I'm like, you don't get to choose your family. And I said, and there's a reason why God made it that way, because some of us need difficult people to love, and we would run away from them in any other circumstance except for the fact that we're related to them.
That's a whole nother podcast.
Totally. How to love the unloving people in your family.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, and I have a great family. I love most of the people in my family, but even so, in their worst moments, they're incredibly difficult.
Yeah.
And just like I am. I don't, I give it to my family. I give lots of credit to them. They love me despite all of me.
Well, true of all of us, right?
Yeah.
This is true.
Yeah.
I have some pretty interesting nicknames. That could be a whole nother podcast. What are your family nicknames?
Oh, that's funny.
Oh, you want to share one or two since you brought it up?
Well, the top of the list at the moment is Cruella DeVille.
Oh,
yes. I
can send you my wig from Halloween. Remember?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is the craziest thing, Kimberly. So we're building, this little apartment for my mother-in-law. And even one of the builders said, you kind of look like Cruella DeVille. And I was like, excuse me? You don't even know me.
That's funny.
But yeah. That could be another podcast. All the nicknames.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well,
don't
we've
have any
talked about,
nicknames.
I don't either. I don't think. Oh, Jesus
I mean,
Kim. We've talked about Jesus
Jesus
Kim
Kim.
before.
Yep. Hilarious.
ah,
Elise, do you have any nicknames?
I
Any fun
really, I
nicknames?
was, no. I mean, I have variations on Elise, Lily, Lilabelle,
Those all
nothing.
sound so sweet.
Yeah.
Mhm.
What can I say?
Oh, yeah. Pollyanna over there. Me,
So
Cruella
not
de
true.
Vil.
Potty mouth would be a nickname of mine.
Oh,
Definitely. Oh
past
yeah.
of Elise.
I
Yeah.
I love
I
to
was
see.
called Fertile Myrtle.
Oh,
Yeah, that was
okay.
another one.
Yeah.
Wait, what?
They-
Why?
This is the conundrum of conundrums. I have no idea. So I got that nickname in high school. I wasn't
Oh my gosh.
I was not promiscuous at that time, at least. Thank you. But you know Jessie from Saved by the Bell?
Mm-hmm.
So her middle name was Myrtle, and evidently I had her personality, like kind of high strung perfectionist, person. So they named me Myrtle, and then they named me Fertile Myrtle. Not really sure
Just
how
for
that
fun.
Because it
Yeah,
rhymes.
Because
guess so.
obvious.
Because obviously, yeah. So I have some strange nicknames.
I didn't have a nickname, but I did win biggest flirt in 8th grade.
Oh,
Aw.
Elise.
Young.
Yeah.
In
Well,
8th grade.
they were the 8th
What
grade.
kind of grown-ups thought that would be a good superlative for an 8th grader?
They were the 8th grade award,
Yeah.
awards that the kids voted on. There was like a list, and I won biggest
Most
flirt.
flirtatious.
Biggest flirt. That was the exact title. They
This
didn't
also goes with the Pollyanna.
yeah, and the
Yeah.
potty mouth. Put them all together, and what have you got?
A saucy minx. Oh my gosh. We totally went off the rails, Kimberly.
That's okay.
Sorry.
That's all right. That's all right. It happens sometimes. But I'm gonna back up to these
Especially
difficult
with these
people.
Yes. Yes.
And just mention embracing struggle and adversity. Like, I believe we've covered this in other episodes, like creating these resilient kids that don't just, balk at struggle. I can't stand, and this is something that I'm struggling with in my home, is that anytime we come up against friction, we think it's because something's wrong. Like it shouldn't be that way. And I'm like, what are you talking about? This is an opportunity for growth. And so I'm really trying to shift that in my home right now. And I'm upset at myself that I've let certain things get out of control, and we want to point fingers and we want to blame because this should have been easier. And I'm like, no, how about it isn't? Like,
It
how
isn't.
about this is a tough thing that our child is going through, and we need to walk them through it and coach them through it. And we need to get excited because this is an opportunity to speak into that area. This is an opportunity to give them the wisdom that we have. And, the lack of friction we don't grow, we don't learn, we don't get anywhere. That's not the end goal. Like I feel like that's been
It's not
hot
possible.
for us right now. Is
just-
like, yeah, embrace it. It's what are we,
Yeah.
again, the process. What are we learning from this? What's the opportunity that's before us? What is this going to lead to that we wouldn't have the opportunity before?
It's funny. I'm thinking, it's heartbreak too. Like there's some of this stuff that's heartbreaking.
Mhm.
And I can be very superlistic using superlatives. Like this is devastating. I can remember doing that with my kids with some stuff that was devastated, and you got to be careful not to use those words and allow myself to feel them. I'm just thinking again, Kimberly, putting myself more back in the day. I do think I think usually what's at work when we get freaked out about friction and difficulties is fear. We're just afraid of what is happening and what might be the outcome of whatever is happening. It's hard I found it hard not to do that. But I think you're absolutely right. It's like, this is life on planet Earth.
Yep.
Kids are going to grow and perhaps resist certain things that we don't want them to resist. make choices that we don't want to make them to make, but they are learning and growing, and it's appropriate whether we
Mhm.
like it or not. And
Yeah.
a peaceful home and a happy haven, sure, that was my goal, but that's not real. And I think wanting that too much can cause more friction.
Mm.
You know, like,
Mhm.
oh, this isn't the way it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be like this. Well, it isn't. And then go back to the comparing stuff. Then you're comparing yourself to this idealized version that you don't have. And so you're always falling short. So our family's
Mm.
not doing so well, you know?
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
and that's just not, I don't think that fuels a growth mindset, actually.
Mhm.
But like, Kim, when you were talking about in your family, like, I think one of the things that we are dealing with more, and it may even be a symptom of my own parenting, which is like, ugh, gosh, is that's hard to like swallow that, is this idea of blaming something outside of yourself for your experience.
Mhm.
Now,
Mhm.
obviously circumstances and people and situations, are not always great. But I recently read this quote by Jack Canfield, and I don't know if you know it, but he says, if you want to be successful, you have to take 100%
Mm.
responsibility for everything that you experience in life. Like,
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
and when you wrap your head around, like, I'm like, can I just do 75%?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
can I go like 80% and still
Yeah.
be like moderately successful? Because that might be
Mhm.
the route I want to take. But I think the reality is when we teach our kids, instead of shifting blame when something doesn't go their way, or when they're feeling upset, and just say, why do you feel that way? What is it in your personality? Well, how can you take
Mhm.
ownership of that?
I was going to
Because
say
that
ownership
also
is the,
equips them, to not allow someone else to manipulate them, to manipulate their emotions. They're owning all of that. and
mm-hmm.
and it's like, yeah, I might have gotten offended, but that's on me. I got offended. I chose offense
Mhm.
instead of saying, that's your opinion. I know who I am. I'm grounded in Christ, in my family that loves me. Let's move on.
Yeah.
So these are the harder lessons, I think, of a growth mindset.
Mm-hmm.
And especially like when our kids face things like bullying, right? When they face kids and circumstances that are really atrocities, you know, when I hear that my kid's being bullied, I want to go rage mode mama into the
Mm-hmm.
school and like light some parents up and be like, hey, okay, you don't know how to parent your kid. Come on, I'll show you how it's done. And that's like human, awful, terrible. We shouldn't be doing that. But can I equip my children to have that kind of mindset where it's like, okay, you take 100% responsibility for how you feel right now.
Mhm.
Does their opinion of you and what they're doing, does it count for more than mine? Because I'm with you all the time. I see you all the
Mhm.
time.
Mm.
I love you way more. Shouldn't my opinion count for more?
Mm-hmm.
Not that it does in the moment, but it's like training them
Yeah.
Yes.
where to
Yeah.
get your feedback from.
Yes.
Where's a healthy place to establish who I am,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
how I can move forward in life. So yeah,
Mhm.
I love that quote by Jack Canfield. It literally hit
Yeah.
me square between the eyes the other day.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Again,
right there.
it's such a high ownership statement. It's
Yeah.
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
And that's the whole
the-
idea behind the book, Leadership and Self-Deception.
Ooh, sounds good.
Yeah, I forget who writes that. I don't want to miscall it out, so I might put it in the show notes. But it's this idea of like it's in the context of a team and a work environment, but like as a leader, you need to be taking responsibility for 100% of the mistakes your team makes. And
Yeah.
if
Wow.
you are turning around and pointing the finger, like not a
Not
great
a leader.
attribute. Yeah, and it was in that book was actually written. It was paralleling family life and business life,
Wow.
and yeah,
What was the
it's
name of
really
it
good.
again, Kimberly?
Leadership and Self-Deception.
Leadership and self. I'm gonna have to
wow.
read that. Sounds
Yeah. It
I can look that
delicious.
up when
sounds
my
good.
phone was.
Sounds
And
sounds
written.
intense.
It's written in story form, like the classic like Ogmandino style, where they're telling a story and then they're unfolding the principles, so you don't feel like you're getting like a it's not a
Mm.
nonfiction read, and it's not like a manual.
Mm.
It's like the story that's pulled out, and like you're like, oh, you're like connecting the dots, and then it gets wrapped up at the end.
Wow.
Really
I love that.
interesting. Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah. But Elise, you were saying something, like when you say things are devastating,
Yeah.
right? Like words matter.
Yeah.
And if we teach our kids, or if we get into the habit of going to those big words right off the bat, now, like, is it really devastating?
Yeah.
Is it really unbearable? Is it really like, and really putting things into perspective
Yeah.
for our children, and making sure to
Mhm.
stay away from those words.
Who are you talking to?
Yeah.
Who are you
Yeah.
talking to?
Yeah.
It's so funny
Elise.
because I do have, I would say I have children who can be dramatic, and
Like
it's so
mother,
obvious
like
where it came from. It's just like, yeah, very emotive. And
Mhm.
and I don't think I had to really learn about the power of our words. I really
Mhm.
did. That's been something that has the power of our words and the power of our mindset. It's something I'm so geared towards. So it's kind of
Mhm.
it's hard to remember that I didn't always feel this way.
Mhm.
Or that I didn't always recognize it. I mean, I was a psychology major, so some of it was there, but
Mhm.
I think, yeah, I think that's good, Kimberly, to kind of say, okay, you just said you think you're going to die, for example. Like,
Yeah.
I think I'm going to, I don't know. I don't know if I can live with this. I mean,
Of course you're gonna live with it. You have no
who said
choice.
things like this?
Elise, I feel you. You know, I used to be in the dramatic arts. I
Right.
have definitely said big words like
Mhm. I
devastating.
save them, and then when I
Yeah.
pull them out, I want everybody to like tremble.
Well,
That's
that's probably a better idea than using them on a routine basis.
I
Um,
don't know.
but yeah,
Oh.
I think words are really important, and it's a good point to, like, when your child says something in a certain way,
Mhm.
to kind of say, okay, this is such a coachy thing, which I do this. I heard you say
Mhm.
this.
Yeah.
I
Mhm.
heard you use this word. Do you mean that? Tell me more about that. Is
Mhm.
that, can we kind of talk a little bit more about, because we often, and that's very Jack Canfield-esque, actually, we often say things that we don't mean,
Yeah.
but they still have impact,
Mhm.
whether it's within relationships within our families or towards ourselves or whatever.
Yeah.
They're powerful. So
Yeah.
Yeah. So I started reading this book with my Connect group, and it's by two counselors, marriage and family counselors, Milan and Kay Yurkovich, and it's called How
Hmm.
We Love. And they have this list in the book of what they call soul words.
mm,
And they're descriptive words, they're feeling words, and they actually really help equip parents and spouses and kids
mhm,
with dialing into the realities of their emotions, right? Like really how they're feeling,
Mm.
which I think helps us unpack them. Sometimes we bottle things up and we can't move past a certain event because we don't have the language to like get it out of ourselves.
mhm,
And so yeah, Elise, you used the word devastating because the closest thing was disappointed, but you were like, it's more than disappointed, but it's not
mhm,
quite devastating, but I don't know what to say, you know?
mhm, mhm.
And you just wanted someone to know you were deeply hurting,
Well,
at the end of the
Mhm.
day.
that between fear and hurt, I think that is the
Yeah,
crux of a lot of it. But
Yeah.
totally.
those words help us define a little bit more than that, flesh them out a little bit.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But I think
Yeah.
that's another thing about growth mindset. It's like if you have a what I call a big feelings kid, right? I know lots of big feelings kids. I love them because I'm like I relate to you. We're pals and friends.
Mhm.
But when they start to have this big emotional experience, I can sometimes like help them, because I'm like, oh, you're having a big feeling. Are you angry? Are you annoyed? Are you frustrated? And all of these have a different feel.
Mhm.
And it
Mm,
helps them actually get to a place where they're like, oh, I'm just frustrated. Oh,
mhm.
okay, cool. You can be frustrated. That's okay. You can be frustrated. Just, you know, don't throw a truck at your brother's head when you're frustrated. That's all we're asking for. So,
Oh gosh.
I love it though.
All right, we're going to wrap it up with one last point or one last attribute. Engaging in deliberate practice. I love this because this is one thing that I think I hope I did a decent job at teaching
I
my
would think,
kids.
yes.
Yeah, I'm like, you get a gold star for that.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree.
I think of like the piano lessons, the sports that they tried, and they all thought they would just come out the gate and be amazing at it. And they were so discouraged when they weren't getting it. And look, we could probably preach into ourselves, right?
Yes.
We weren't born with these skills. We weren't, you know what I mean? And to think that you're just going to come out and you're going to ace it without any practice and without any diligence. I mean, it's crazy, you know.
Yeah.
And you're not supposed to be good at it when you're starting it. You know, I've reminded my son of that when he started a new sport. I'm like, you're not supposed to be amazing at this. You're just not. Like,
Yes.
Yeah.
I know you're athletic and I know you want to be a cool guy, but you're not supposed to be. This is not unexpected. This is
Yeah.
actually
Mhm.
expected. And
Mhm.
so practice, practice, practice. And yeah, I think that's something that we have to remind, you know, like I think we're too quick to label our kid talented or not talented, or
Oh,
it's
yeah.
a thing or
Yeah.
it's not their thing. Well, really, there's very few things that are people's things
Mhm.
without like
We
effort,
don't give
desire,
birth
and
to
practice.
concert pianists.
No,
We don't.
No.
I don't care how much classical music you strap on your belly when you're pregnant with them.
Which is a good idea, by the way. You
Yeah.
should do that if you
Absolutely.
like classical music.
Yeah.
So in the book, you just reminded me,
Mhm.
Tiger Mom. Have you read that book?
No, that's
So-
from a while
It's
ago.
a while ago. It's
Yeah,
a while
yeah,
ago.
yeah.
But I'll
Yeah.
never forget this illustration that the author used. And she was making a point between Western mothers and sort of Eastern mothers. That was the
Mm.
crux of the book.
Mhm.
But she said, she goes, you know, Asian mothers, or at least she claimed it for herself. She goes, I don't let my children quit anything until they are better than average at it.
That's good.
I
Yeah.
mean, think about how many things I know for me, like if I don't get it within a little bit and like, I'm really interested in it, I'm like, nah, I'll
Mhm.
pass.
Mhm.
But she, you know, she had her kids in music, she had her kids in sports. She said, no, you're not allowed to quit until you're better than average. Then you can actually decide whether or not you like doing this activity, because nobody likes to do something they're not good at.
True.
Mhm.
Good point.
Mhm.
I was like,
Very
that
good.
mama is smart.
Yes.
Yeah, I did that with
Yes.
my son and the trumpet. Like, I'm like, I
Yeah.
need to see you put forth the effort to get to a level where you enjoy it. And then you can make the decision. And we did. I got him a couple extra lessons and we put a lot of effort in a season. And I think he did kind of love it. And then I think something sort of happened that we kind of lost momentum on it and he just decided it wasn't for him, and that's fine.
Mhm.
But I get that idea. I mean, I don't
Yeah.
think I've been super consistent in it, but I do want them to put enough effort into it so that they're actually giving it a legitimate shot.
Yeah, precisely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Again, nobody likes to do something they're not good at.
Right.
Mhm.
Like none of us.
A lot of good quotes
Mhm.
here, Jess.
Yeah. I have
Between
had
all of
quite a
us, there's
few.
been some
like
Yeah.
this is
good quotes.
I don't know. Maybe I
Good
just was on a
reminders.
roll with the quotes in the brain. I don't know. I
Yeah,
think
but
it's just
really
the
true.
topics. You know how when you get a certain topic, it triggers like it something that
Yeah, yeah.
that's all it is. It's the word association, like you said.
Yeah, it's
Mhm.
good stuff though. It's yeah, I agree with that concept too. We definitely had battles over people stopping lessons, in
Mhm.
particular, instruments, because my family was very musically oriented. And yeah, we were just like, yeah, no, this is not the time. After all the work that
No.
you've put into it,
Mhm.
you're about to get to the next level. And I felt, especially with piano, because my sisters and I sing, and none of us really play instruments. My sister Sheila played; she did all the guitar masses back in the day, so she was the most accomplished. But when we actually started singing at weddings and stuff like that, nobody could really play an instrument. And so I said to my kids, if you learn to accompany yourself it's going to be trust me, it's going to be such a gift. And so we did really make them hang with it longer than they wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it paid off.
Yeah.
Nobody is a
Good.
concert pianist, but
Yeah.
that's not what we were aiming
Well,
for.
like this idea of muscle memory, I mean, it goes along with the sports, but I think it
Yeah.
applies to almost everything that we do. I mean, I started playing tennis a few years ago, and I do tennis on Fridays, like do a clinic. And the muscle memory, I know when I get discouraged that it's all about the muscle memory, especially when your coach comes in and like they tweak a few things and it's like going a couple steps backwards. Like you feel like I just got my serve consistent and now you're telling me I need to hold the racket differently if I want power. And you're like, but no. And so it's like one step forward, two steps back. But I know that if I keep at it, I'm going to get that muscle memory. And I've now gotten to a point where I can beat my husband's natural ability. My technical training and practice can now beat his natural ability. And that's very exciting. He keeps joking he's going to take some lessons. I'm like, please don't. I'm enjoying this.
Don't start correcting your technique.
Yeah.
But I look back.
Me beat you.
Yeah, exactly. But I look back and I'm like, it was just an hour and a half every Friday, all these years. And like, I really enjoy it. And I really like, it feels amazing to have accomplished that. And our kids need to feel that too. And if they never feel it, they're gonna quit. And so what is it that they need to practice continually until they go, oh, I see how this works. I'm getting the muscle memory.
Yeah.
You know, whether it's something physical or whether it's something mental. I mean, there's a muscle memory that happens right with our brain and the grooves that are made in our brain, right? The pathways of thinking, like, creating
and
that
also
muscle
the
memory.
things we've been told, you know.
Yeah.
Like
I love that though. Don't quit. It's like, you know, as a parent, one of the best things that you can build into your child is resilience, to never give up, right? Never give up. I had a boyfriend in high school, actually, not to pivot, but slight pivot. I was struggling with depression. My parents were going through a very tumultuous divorce, and it was just a dark season of life. And I started to have suicidal ideation. And I confessed this to my then boyfriend at the time, that I just, you know, I didn't say it like that. I just kind of said, I just don't want to be here anymore. I don't want to go through this anymore. And, you know, it triggered something in him. He became concerned for sure. And like in the next day or so, he brought me this poem and he said, do you know why I know, Jess, that you'll never follow through with that kind of thing? And I was like, why? You're so annoying. And he goes, because you're not a quitter. He's like, you never have been. He's like, you are resilient. You keep going and you don't quit. And so, you know, my own daughter has struggled with some of those things. And that's what I'm trying to build in her, is this, you know, willingness to stick to things, to stay with it, even when it's hard, because I think that actually builds something unspeakable and unshakable in our kids, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Love that.
Yeah. I do worry about quitting before it gets good.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, am I about to turn the corner? Like, am I about to give it all up? And then I'm going to like turn the corner and I missed it.
Yeah.
I just, this much.
Yeah. Yeah. So that motivates me a little bit, but
yeah.
All right, ladies. Well, this has been an incredible conversation. I have learned so much. I have reaffirmed some of the things that I've been reflecting on and chewing on and journaling about as well, which is fantastic. And I am looking forward to teaching my kids and applying it to my own life.
I can't wait to get that retreat packet. I'm doing it. It's going to be amazing.
Seriously. Okay. I would say do it, Jess.
I'll send it to you. I'll link in the show notes.
So
where
good.
You
this
can all
summer, we'll do a full burn down. How did it work for me? If you want, that'll be cool.
That'd be really cool.
Would you do it? Would you go do it in your little cottage, maybe?
The cabin? Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
We could do that. It's out of our comfort zone, and there's plenty of fun things to do around. So maybe that's a good idea. See, it's all sorted. Retreat packet, got the place. We're good to go.
That's right.
Sounds good. All righty. Thank you, ladies.